Hello and welcome to the show. Well, if you followed elk camp for the last 4 seasons, you've probably noticed that I really focus on guiding and I put my own hunting secondary. Last year, if you watched the show, you saw that I bow hunted here in southwest Colorado, and although I was around the elk a lot and on a big herd and had some really close encounters with some very nice bulls, I just wasn't able to quite close the deal just because of dealing with too many elk. So this year, as I was planning and figuring out what hunts I was going to do and what hunts I was going to guide, I decided to go ahead and reserve a little room for myself at the end of the seasons after all our hunters were done. And I was going to hunt with my Bergara rifle this year, and I was really looking forward to it, to say the least. I'm Steve Chappell, and welcome to elk camp. You know, as I look back over all the guiding that I've done over the past 25 plus years, I've really enjoyed it, and I really wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, I've got to meet some really incredible people and share some great hunts with them. But you know, at heart, I'm a hunter myself. You know, my dad raised me that way. I've been hunting ever since I was a little kid. And as I thought back on it, I had not rifle hunted here on the place in southwest Colorado since 1999. And I decided that this year was the year that I was going to go out and hunt elk again for myself. Today we're out here to shoot this Bergara Premier Series Highlander, chambered in 28 Nosler. It is a tack driver and a confirmed elk killer for sure. We got a Zeiss V4 scope on it and some Pendleton ammunition, and of course we got scope bands always protecting our scope. So really excited to see how this rifle shoots. Going to go ahead and make sure that it's dialed in for me, and then we're going to go elk hunt. Okay, we brought it right an inch, and we're going to bring it up probably about 1.5 inches. Okay, yeah, I think we're perfect. Most of our shots are going to be 200 to 300 yards for the most part. We might stretch it out a little bit if the scenario is right, but most times those shots are going to be right in that range. So we're good to go. We're going to go hunt elk here at elk camp.
Elk Camp with Steve Chappell is brought to you by Bergara Rifles. Our barrels make the difference. Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. We call the game. Zeiss Sports Optics. Confidence in the toughest conditions. Scree. Extreme Mountain Gear. And by Steve Chappell's Zero Hunt Fees. Experience Arizona elk hunting with zero hunt fees. Elk Camp with Steve Chappell is brought to you by Bergara Rifles. Our barrels make the difference.
So finally the magical day arrived. It was November 13th, and it was the start of my elk hunt. And as I headed out in the dark, I just can't explain how excited I was to start this hunt. You know, as we hiked out in the dark, we initially didn't hear anything, but as we moved north a ways in the wide open, we started to hear vocal elk. And to be honest, they were in a very strange spot according to where they're usually at. So I was kind of wondering what they might do when gray light started. So I had to kind of play it conservative and wait for them to make a move. And sure enough, as it just barely started hinting toward light, you know, way before shooting light, the elk moved down to water, and so my cameraman and I were able to move forward. We got into the burn and we started inching our way up there to try to get a look at them. And you know, as we looked them over, it was kind of tough because there were so many elk. To try to focus on the bulls and find the bulls with all the chaos going on was pretty tough. And what I was really impressed with was the fact that you could tell the elk were still rutting. They were vocal, bulls were chasing each other around. And you know, as we looked them over, my cameraman Elliot first spotted this big bull. And when we saw him, wow, this was a bull that we hadn't seen during the fall, during the first season, during the second season, and I knew right away this was going to be our target bull and nothing else would do. Heavy cover up there, and you can't shoot up there, and I'm not going to go up there and blow them up, so we're just going to play it smart and get back in here this afternoon and hope they work their way out into the open where we can look them over and potentially get a shot. But pretty exciting to have that many elk in front of us and vocal, although a little frustrating at the same time. It's hard when you have that many elk to get close to them and do anything with them. But we're going to keep trying until we get it done. Hey guys, for this week's tip, I'd like to talk to you about my Trophy Wife and Heartbreaker elk calls that I developed in conjunction with Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. Now, these are both open reed calls, however, they each have their own unique sound. The Heartbreaker is going to have a little bit deeper, more mature cow sound, and the Trophy Wife is going to have a little bit younger cow sound. So they're both going to have their own unique sound for each situation that you might encounter out there in the woods. Now, during September, I really like to use these calls to actually call bulls into myself and my hunters because the elk are in the full-blown rut and they'll respond and come right into you. But in the later seasons, like we're in Colorado, I mainly use these calls to stop bulls for a shot or to calm elk down if we spook them or something like that happens, and they work really effectively. So now that you've heard about these calls, let's go to the field and actually hear what they sound like in a hunting situation. For more information on these calls or any of my other signature series elk calls by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls, please feel free to visit your local sporting goods dealer, or you can go online and check them out there.
This episode of Elk Camp is sponsored by Steve Chappell's Zero Hunt Fees. Experience Arizona elk hunting with zero hunt fees. This episode of Elk Camp is sponsored by Zeiss Sports Optics. Confidence in the toughest conditions.
So that afternoon as we planned the hunt, I had a real gut feeling that the elk would come down into a big canyon that shades up early. So I decided that that's where we would hunt that evening. Here's our fun side hill spot we get to go down. Pretty steep and rocky, but it's gonna get us in a good spot where we can see much of the far end of the canyon, which I have a gut instinct is right where we need to be. So here we go. This morning. That's good. Maybe it'll bring some more down, especially if they start getting vocal later on. So as we sat there and glassed these elk and just enjoyed having them there in front of us and getting to look them over, my gut started telling me that this was the small group of elk that was separate from the main herd that morning, and it actually wrapped around into that big canyon. So that started working on my mind, knowing that these elk were separate from the big herd and wondering if maybe that big herd was going to be somewhere else that evening. All right, so we looked at these elk for probably about a half an hour. I didn't count them, but there's probably 12 or 15. It's all cows, maybe one spike. And I just get the feeling that that's that other group that we saw this morning that's separate from the big herd, so the big bull's not in this group. So I thought it would be a mistake just to sit here all evening and look at these same elk and not make a play and try to get around and see if we can see this big herd. So that's what we're doing right now. We probably got a good half an hour of light left. We're gonna go see if we can get on this big herd and see this big bull that we saw this morning. Well, sure enough, as luck would have it, when we got down to about the last 30 minutes of light, we hiked off to the north a little bit so we could see back into the big canyon. And wouldn't you know it, we saw dust flying, and that big herd had moved down and joined up with that little group of elk that we were initially watching. So the lesson that I learned that evening is don't always trust your instincts. Sometimes you just got to be patient and stay where you originally planned to go. All right, guys. Well, I'm a little embarrassed right now because I pulled me and Elliot, my videographer, out of the spot that we were in an hour and a half or so ago. As you saw, there was about 12 to 15 elk there, and now the big herd is there. Honestly, my gut was totally telling me that the big herd was not going to come down and join up with that little offshoot group, that they were going to come over here. But I guess I'm wrong. So Sometimes I say elk are elk, and they'll do what they want, when they want, and how they want, and they don't care what I think. So they prove that. So I guess I'm not meant to take one on opening day, and I'm going to have to earn it and hunt hard for it. But one thing's for sure, it's sure enjoyable out here, getting to hunt some myself, and I'm loving it. And I'm praying we get a good opportunity tomorrow here at elk camp.
Elk Camp with Steve Chappell is brought to you by Bergara Rifles. Our barrels make the difference. Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. We call the game. Zeiss Sports Optics. Confidence in the toughest conditions. Scree. Extreme Mountain Gear. And by Steve Chappell's Zero Hunt Fees. Experience Arizona elk hunting with zero hunt fees. This episode of Elk Camp is sponsored by Scree. Extreme Mountain Gear.
So the next morning, as I listened for the elk in the dark, I couldn't hear anything, which isn't totally strange this time of year, and especially with it being pitch black dark. So I decided to go ahead and go around to the east and make an easterly approach so that we'd have the sunrise and the wind mostly to our advantage, and so that's what we did that morning. As we moved in the pre-dawn light, it was really exciting to hear the elk starting to get vocal. That got our adrenaline pumping. And when I heard that very mature sounding bugle that I assumed was going to be our big bull, well, that got my adrenaline flowing through the roof. As the elk continued to move out and file through the canyon bottom below us, I continued to glass them with my binoculars, and I could still hear the big bull bugling. And it sounded like he was going to come out right down there below me, so that had me really hopeful that I was going to get a great shot opportunity at him that morning. Just did. All right, Elliot. Right on, buddy. Wow. It was slow, but it happened fast when it happened. Like right at 250. Wow, what an exciting morning. And this morning, God blessed. They came right out where we wanted them to. There were some further out. 500 plus yards, and we could hear him bugling. We knew his bugle. We figured it would be him, and he came out and it was him. So thank the Lord. Wow. Stinking monster. Wow. Are you kidding me? I had no idea. I knew he was big, but not this big. Wow, the mass is unreal. Well, what an unbelievable morning here this morning at elk camp. I just can't hardly believe that this actually happened this morning. November 14th, the second day of the third rifle season. This is a bull that we have not seen all fall. During first rifle, second rifle, we went through those hunts. He wasn't here. Just feel incredibly blessed that the Lord gave me the opportunity at this bull. It was almost unreal when I leveled this Bergara 28 Nosler on him and already had the Zeiss V4 scope dialed in, and it was just surreal to have the crosshairs on him and know that I was about ready to squeeze the trigger. But again, I just feel incredibly fortunate, and I want to thank my wife for being here. My dad's here. He's going to be really excited about this bull. I have not shot a big bull or a bull here since 1999, so this has been a long time coming. And again, I just feel really thankful and blessed by God to get this opportunity. Just an amazing, incredible morning here at elk camp. Hey guys, thanks for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed following along with me on this special elk hunt. Hey, be sure to check out our website, elkcamptv.com, and also follow along with us on social media, where we keep you up to date with everything elk camp.